Good morning, Mr. Daniels.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for participating in the EASMC endorsement process. This interview will be recorded and posted later to our YouTube page. Please speak up so that your answers can be heard when you're answering the questions. My name is Dwayne Hancock. I'm the EASMC Vice President.
My name is Tiffany Thompson. I'm a Building Service Manager at George Washington Carver Elementary.
Hi, I'm Elaine Deems. I'm a special education paraeducator at Leonardtown Middle School.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ann Tomasic, a career advisor at our Tech Center, Forest Tech Center, Chesapeake Charter School, and I support our virtual academy.
Good morning, I'm Katrina Mills, Building Service Manager at Spring Ridge Middle School.
Mr. Daniels, for reference in this interview, the term educator includes all employees of St. Mary's County Public Schools. And your first question is, if elected, what are your top 3 priorities for St. Mary's County?
So technically I have 4, but like the main issues outside of like trying to focus on taxes and fiscal conservatism, I like to use that term because it brings up a lot of things. But really the number 1 for me is the workforce housing. That's the number 1 I want to address. I have looked in the census data, I've talked to Brooke Learman, the comptroller, a number of different aspects working on that. The second one, although I would say that they're parallel, not separate, is education. I understand based on, I've been sitting in all the budget meetings, I've talked to superintendent, I've had a couple meetings with people. I understand that's a problem. So I really want to, I have to get into that position to really kind of see what I can do to prioritize education, but in my experience, of all the experiences I've had, I understand that education is really important. So I know sometimes people are impatient to see what that looks like in the long run, but I think long term, better outcomes for children, more investment in education, so that's number 2. And the third is the mental health aspect around here. I've talked to people around the county and I recognize that we don't really have a good mental health system, and now that schools could potentially be losing 10 of 13, but I want to work and try to do that, because even if I talk down here or up in Charlotte Hall where a lot of the people say that they don't really want that stuff, you talk to them and they do. So I want to try to see what I can do to lay that out in the future so we can have those services better. So that way it's not all falling in on the sheriff. Because as of right now, Sheriff Hall's taking care of all that, and I think that's kind of an atrocity. So those are my 3.
Thank you.
In your view, what challenges do you see the children in our county facing as they work to be successful in our schools?
I still see, unfortunately, some racism really down in the Great Mills Lexington Park area, just from people I talk about, so I know that's one thing. I also understand, and don't completely quote me on this because this was a statistic told to me the other day, but about 85% of the kids going to school in Lexington Park, Great Mills area, which is District 4, so I'm kind of somewhat focusing on that because it's my district, are at or below the poverty level. So I know that's a problem. I'm really excited about the YMCA going there, but I'm not super worried about us having a quality education down here, because I understand that we are one of the severely underfunded ones, but we actually have really high test scores. So I think kind of that's my number 1. And number 2 is really just trying to make sure that I am concerned about redistricting and White Marsh closing. I don't like the idea of the trend shows that school enrollment is going to probably go up, and we have no plan for when that goes back up after redistricting. So I really want to have the student-teacher ratio to make sense in the future and try to work the best that I can. One of the reasons I ran is the candidate that I did with the party that I did is maybe I can have a relationship up in Annapolis and kind of talk about these things, see what I can do about that in the future. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Which considerations are most important when drafting and finalizing the county budget?
I definitely think there needs to be a balance between, just in general with the budget, a balance between what the needs are and what actually needs to be provided. I don't know specifically a lot about the terminology of certain budgets, but I like the idea of somewhat what I understand they're trying to do is what are the things that are absolutely necessary to have, for example, the schools actually be able to function, and then I need to weigh everything else and kind of see how that kind of lays out. But really, to me, in the long run, I think investing in education is probably like, I would like to see more investment in education, because a lot of the problems when people talk about crime and homelessness and everything, I think if you invest more in education, the long term you can probably avoid a lot of crime and homelessness and everything. So there are a lot of considerations that take into place with that, but one of my considerations is really trying to see what I can do to better fund education, because I think in the long term that will save money if you invest in education on the front end. I know a lot of people are impatient to see what that looks like on the back end, but I mean, that's just the process. That's why Maryland Blue is 10 years, so.
As county commissioner, how will you include the voice of SMCPS and public educators in your decision making?
Well, this one's easy. I plan to build relationships with EASMC and the Board of Education the best I can and keep in touch with the superintendent. I have already tried to have meetings with pretty much everyone just to understand my base. I don't want to come in something and have these ideas. I mean, I've always known education probably needs better funding here. I hear about it all the time. My mom's a teacher. But I want to keep the relationships that I have, so if I have thoughts or questions, I can still reach out to the people who are experts and talk to them about it and then maybe build something with them. So that's really how I'm including the voice. I'm going to keep those people involved, but also make sure I'm involved with them so I can know what their concerns are.
Thank you. Please share an overview of your campaign. Include your key endorsements, fundraising, and campaign plans, and why you believe you will be a competitive candidate.
So I'm still early in the process and I feel really behind. So I don't really have any key endorsements yet, but I am working on them. There's a number that I'm working on. My fundraising, I haven't done any fundraising yet because I don't really have a team for fundraising. But my campaign plans are right now, I'm trying to do a meet and greet every month. And that's been going fairly well. Surprisingly, from what I've been told by people, it's been going really well. I'm going to be doing some more fundraiser campaigns now, and I'm planning those right now because the weather is better. We're not freezing to death again, although we just had snow the other day after I went outside walking in 66 degrees. But I do believe I will be a competitive candidate because the gentleman that I am running against made a lot of promises, and if I look back and I've looked at all the old documents, I knew if I was him, I would not have run on lowering taxes because I knew there was no way to do it. And then he went and he raised taxes the first chance he had to vote on it. And there are a number of things I had issues with him. The excise tax stuff that's going on with the town of Leonardtown. I'm not that kind of guy. If I am running my campaign on I would love to lower taxes, but if it's not feasible, I'm not going to make those promises I can't keep. I also like the fact that I am, I also recognize that I am a white dude. There's a privilege with that. We all kind of hate to say that, but it's true. I'm from the area. I'm a combat wounded Marine Corps veteran. My mom's a teacher. My dad's an engineer here, and I have tons of family here. So that gives me a competitive advantage too because my opponent is not from here and all those other things. So I'm trying to use it. But I also am not bragging when I say this, but I feel like I'm relatively worldly. I grew up with a good family. I had a good education. I have a good background. I have a bachelor's in Homeland Security. I have a master's in Leadership and Management. I have, served in the U.S. military. I had a wonderful career. I'm decorated for my career for 8 years. I left the Marine Corps. I've done a lot of nonprofit work, a lot of which I had never put on Facebook or Instagram. I just did it just because. So sometimes it feels really unauthentic, some of the things I'm doing now. I've done a lot of work overseas, including in France, in Tanzania. I did a lot of work in Ukraine, so these things have kind of given me a different perspective on how to tackle some of these challenges. Something that bothers me sometimes, it seems like, not bashing Americans, I love my country, but we are very small-minded when it comes to tackling issues, and I think there are maybe other ways to address this. And I'm having conversations now with people on both sides of the party to try to see what that looks like. So overview of my campaign is I'm basically running on my own, but I'm hitting the ground running. I've met with most of the departments. I'm hitting all the businesses. If people want to talk to me, I'm doing that meet and greet. So I'm trying to build a big base before maybe some donations come in and I can start doing the different apps and the different things to do better job canvassing and everything. So I'm just on the front end of everything. We're still a little early from what I've been told. So.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Daniels. County Commissioners passed a tax increase effective in 2025 to support the blueprint. As a county commissioner, will you commit to using the revenue as it was intended to support public education?
No doubt. There is no question about that. I got nothing else to say about that, yes. If I say that I'm going to raise taxes to support education, I threaten to flat fund you the next day, I need to be slapped.
Thank you.
Yep.
What specific revenue strategies would you implement to fully fund public school education?
So that's a great question. I have been talking a lot to my fellow candidates about that, and I think what the problem is, like if you guys are following the budget now, the request for the budgets, we're like 18 million below what our revenue is. So something that I don't think we've done really good in this county is like private-public partnerships or kind of going over, like, expanding our tax base. All the gas station, everything coming in, that tax leaves the county. I want to try to focus on building things here to create a better tax base. Well, one of those things is, I know a lot of people on the base. I am meeting with the CEO of the base soon because I understand that the base does not have a good feeling about the county right now. We don't work well together, so I'm going to meet with the CEO and a couple of his aides and see what we can do to kind of build that relationship again. And maybe, you know, because the base is our number one person that we get our tax revenue from. So I want to make sure that that continues. However, I also want to take advantage of some of the things we have here and like build on those for tax base. So a couple ideas that the candidates, and these are not all my ideas, so I'm not taking credit for them, that we have so many engineers, so many smarts here. So we know that the regional airport's going on, and they're doing drones outside of the government. They're doing it like with just the basic companies here, and you know that's been expanding. So that would be a great tax base. We already have hospital, that's a good tax base, but we also have a lot of agriculture. We also have a lot of waterways. So what does that look like? What kind of public-private partnerships can I talk to? What kind of things can I look into? Also, what can I do to take advantage of grants that are available? Because that doesn't, people here in the county government aren't really good, in my opinion, looking at grants. And I know that because of an interview that was done. One of the candidates, there was another person running, got asked a question, he didn't know about the grant. It was a really easy grant. So I really want to have someone focusing on that too, to make sure we're not spending county money on things we need grants for. But yeah, so really just kind of expanding our tax base and really kind of having conversations to do that. And I think there's a lot of things here to do that. So one other example is we paid the government for the soil testing. I cannot remember what division that is. I can't remember what that is. But we can like maybe incentivize some companies to come down here and create their own company and do their own soil testing instead of spending a lot of money for the government to do it for us. Maybe having a company do it. We also have these plans and data centers coming here. What are those distributed data centers? There's a lot of these things coming up with the distributed data center now. And that's not my idea, but that is something that is currently ongoing, and we're maybe looking at that to build that. And Chuck Borges, when you talk to him later, he can tell you a lot more about that. He's a data geek. But from what he talks about, that sounds great. Just we need to have a chain up to Annapolis going down, up and down, and be able to have someone who's motivated to have these conversations with people. And right now we don't. It's very clear to me.
School districts cannot be expected to solve the mental health crisis alone. How would you leverage your role as commissioner to build formal partnerships with county health departments or private providers to offer wraparound services on campus?
So on the campus, huh? Well, I do think one of the things that I really want to do better, and I'm actually going to the Department of Health open house, I think it's next Thursday. I've already sat down with Dr. Brewster, and we were already kind of strategizing about these. But right now I'm trying to educate myself about what these things look like. It appears to me that a lot of people don't know that Health Hub and stuff really exists. So being able to take advantage of that and see what kind of ideas she also has. But I'm also talking with Sheriff Hall about some ideas that he has about some of the mental health challenges here in the area. Specifically on campus, I really just need to educate myself better on that and see what we can do about that. But I'm for that because I recognize mental health is a problem, and that's not going away. So I think it's only really getting worse. Sorry, I don't know if that's a full answer to your question.
So we are the largest employer in the county. Our employees make up a large part of the community. How would you support us in your county budget?
Well, I just want to make sure, a concern of mine that I have is I just want to make sure that the people who are doing these, like working these jobs, are able to be here. And I recognize teachers, like, it's great you guys make $60,000 now, but $60,000 on a sole income is not enough to fund around here. And I know that because my brother makes almost 6 figures single, and he can barely afford living here. So I would love to say I would do more to try to make pay higher because my mom was a teacher and she dealt with that forever. I would have to look at the budget and see what kind of things I could do to support you. But I would do whatever I could in my budget to support teachers and everyone that supports the teachers in the school system in whatever means that I have available. And I just know it's rough right now, so I can't make any promises just yet.
Thank you. Commissioners often have equal power but differing viewpoints. Describe a time you had to build consensus among a group of peers with conflicting priorities. What was your strategy?
Oh, this is a great one. and I know I'm probably getting into national politics here, but this is a conversation I just had yesterday. I have realized that a lot of the issues, county, local, national, state, we all kind of want the same thing, it's just we tend to talk over each other. So this isn't specifically with commissioners, although I did talk with one of the commissioners right now about this. The example is the ICE stuff going on. My background is DHS, so I studied ICE, I studied TSA, and I studied FEMA specifically. ICE is going way out of its purview now. And I think one of the things I try to do is humanize a lot of the issues that are going on now, what that actually looks like. So I have some people that I served in the Marine Corps with that are, you know, pro-ICE. And this is probably a bad example, just pops, the first one pops in my head. They're pro-ICE, but like, I spent 7 years getting my Afghan translators over to the US. They did everything right, they've done everything right, and they were running scared in Texas for a little while, probably still are, because they're afraid just because they look different, they're gonna be picked up by ICE. So when I talk to some of my friends who served in war with me with these guys, and they're saying all these things, I'm like, well, think about Haroon and Max and Paimon, like, you know, humanizing it to them. Think about them, they've done everything right, they've worked with Amazon, they've been driving trucks everywhere, and now they're afraid because they look different, because they're Afghanis, because the president specifically called out Afghanistan at one point. How would you feel if Haroon, the guy, he actually got injured with me in Afghanistan, how do you feel if they picked him up and sent him to Uganda? And they're like, oh yeah, you know, and it changed their mind, because I gave an example, I didn't get personal about it, I didn't get angry about it, I tried to humanize it. So I try to do that sometimes, and like I said, maybe that's a skill that I had because of all the things that have happened to me and the places that I've been, but I understand that I'm not going to know everything, and we're not going to always agree on things, but if we can kind of just come to some sort of consensus as humans, what that looks like, I think we can do a lot together. Luckily, I think there is a place and an appetite for that here in St. Mary's County. It's just those voices are kind of afraid to speak up right now because of things going on. I hope that is an answer to your question. Sorry, when the national politics, but just popped in my head.
Mr. Daniels, that concludes our questions for today.